Hello, this is not Grizzly Adams reporting once again. It's me, David Downs, and we're going to dive headfirst into another review here on the DownsSpeaks channel. And as you might expect from the title, this is it. The big one. The crap stopper. A bowel blockage from which nothing of any positivity can be extracted. We're talking about maybe not the worst bomb that GSN's ever produced. Lord knows they produced a lot of bombs. But it's not very promising if you watch the 2 episodes they decided to show tonight, make a half-hour show into a 1-hour premiere. It's Family Trade, the reality show that's going to launch their reality franchise, I guess, the latest Wonderkind. Most of you may have seen my video earlier, late last year maybe, where I talked about why would you greenlight a show like this. I made a lot of jokes about it, and now we actually get to see the product in its glory, I guess you could say. So, what is Family Trade all about? Well, it's pretty simple. We get our intro to Gardner Stone, a car salesman in Vermont whose specialty is to trade anything you have for a car, whatever car you may want. And I mean anything. Really, the show didn't even wait. Most shows would jump in, maybe introduce the characters, maybe set up how quirky they are. Most reality shows would do that, but not Family Trade. We just dive right into the action. Our first trade was for the dreaded maple syrup. Wow. I mean, no, you don't even know what you're getting with these people, and already they're trying to get you into the trade game. And it does take them a while, though, to get to the heart of the show, the part that they promoted more in the promos than anything in the build-up to the show that they've done over the last month or so. It was that Barter is better. They're trying to tell you this show is not like your typical pawn show. Well, that seems strange because it just reeks that a lot of the stuff they do is ripped off from other shows. Like, take the song. There's another pawn show that uses a song similar to that. I mean, little things. And apparently somebody at Lionsgate, one of the producers, thought it would be clever to rip off from Love Triangle. Boy, of all the shows you could pick, you rip off Love Triangle with those useless little factoids while they're trying to show stuff to Barter. What point did they serve? Do we really need to know that certain dolls were made in the 15th century or whatever the hell it was that they showed? It really added nothing to the discussion. You're trying to trade dolls for a car. Come on. Do we need to know porcelain dolls were made back in the day for whatever? It just made no sense. A lot of this show really made no sense. They were also trying to build up, I guess, the tension that was supposed to be present between Gardner and his children. There wasn't a whole lot of that present. It was mostly his one son whining and moaning about, how am I going to get this sold? How am I going to get that sold? Because the whole premise of the dealership is the challenge they want to face is that they take this useless crap they get and try to sell it to make a profit and justify the expense. That's all fine and good, but really, it didn't make for very interesting television. There weren't too many laughs unless you just laughed at the absurdity of some of this stuff. And because in the first episode, the first half hour, we got maple syrup and the pigs that I mentioned in my first review. And this led to perhaps the most hypocritical thing I have seen on TV in a long time. When you get back from a commercial, Gardner and his kids are trying to feed the pigs in their tractor, and they're feeding them bacon and sausage. Let me repeat that again. Gardner Stone and his family were feeding pigs bacon and sausage. Isn't that like feeding a cow a Big Mac? I mean, do you know what the hell you've got here? You got pigs. Bacon and sausage come from pigs, for God's sakes. And you're feeding it to them? That's cannibalism. Probably the only time I laughed during the whole show was look at the absurdity of that. So, that was pretty much the first episode. They got rid of the pigs. They sold the maple syrup to some stores and restaurants, and Gardner boasted to his downtrodden son how he made more of a profit than his son made. Then we jump into episode 2. Again, no build-up. How are we supposed to care about these people you're trying to promote in your reality show if you give us no background, really, to what makes them tick? If you're going to sell a reality show, you gotta make people care about the person that you're trying to promote. And this isn't the first time GSN's created a reality show where people don't care or hated the character. Like Carney Wilson on Stapled was an example. They made Carney Wilson unlikable, either through the editing of the show to show what they wanted to have, or just Carney's personality in general made her unlikable and was one of the many reasons that show failed. You aren't even giving us a chance to care what these guys do. It's already bad enough that it kind of feels like that skit they've been doing on Saturday Night Live with the Cajun Justice in Maine, or whatever it's called. It seems that ridiculous. You got a guy looking like James Carville's cowboy brother in Vermont. What's the point? Why does he do this? That's a good thing you could try to explore. Why did he think it was a good idea to sell cars for whatever junk you have? I mean, I sat through an hour of this drivel, and the only character that even had a little bit of personality that they showed was another barterer, I guess you can call him a barterer, who was near the end of the second episode trying to jiff the boys out of money, and they said no. He had at least a little bit of a edge to him. You could see that he was working for God because it was in a chapel. You could see the little bit of an edge, and I really think that's what's missing from these characters in this show, among other things. There's no personality developed. I don't know if they're going to wait until later on in the run to do that, but you should have established it in the first 2 episodes. You shouldn't have just jumped right into the action and said, to hell with developing character. Because this isn't like a game show, sad to say for GSN, huh? This isn't like a game show where you don't need to worry too much about the personality of the participants. That can be shown through whatever. These people are dependent on you trying to develop that backstory. And there was nothing developed here. And does GSN have somebody with ADD doing their little banners at the bottom? Because twice, during the 2 episodes, once per episode, there was a banner at the bottom promoting Family Trade being on the network. If you're watching the episode, you know it's on the network. Little things. So, but the main point of this is Family Trade did not look interesting to me. You have a concept pretty much that has been done on other shows like Pawn Stars, Hardcore Pawn, and those kinds of shows. This is basically the same thing, except it's done with stuff you wouldn't expect to see traded for. It's not quite enough, especially when you don't really know the personality of the people in the show, to make it interesting. It was really dull to watch. And dull is the last thing GSN needs on their primetime lineup. Although, surprisingly, there were quite a few people on Twitter who actually enjoyed the show, mostly from Vermont. I guess Vermont residents have an inferiority complex. They get dissed by other states in the Union, so they want to be proud that they got a TV show on. Well, maybe the people in Vermont are proud, but I cannot see why they would want to be proud. There was one person in particular who really loved it, and then you find out later she loves it because she's actually going to be on a future episode of the show. So, way not to be biased. Well, let's wrap this up. Family Trade, another one of GSN's disastrous reality efforts. They're never going to learn from their mistakes. I even heard that there was a rap, R-A-P, rap done by Gardner Stone on the GSN website. If Chuck Woolery and Wink Martindale didn't prove anything to you, old white guys rapping does not work. They're not Eminem. They should be eating M&Ms, not rapping like Eminem. So, or more or less Vanilla Ice, because it was just a bunch of rhymes, but that's another debate altogether. I cannot recommend this show to anybody who wants to watch even decent TV. Stay away from this at all costs. And GSN, I don't know the future of what this show is going to have. Maybe I'll be wrong, like I was on Bible Challenge. I thought that it wasn't going to last because I didn't think people could play along, and that the subject would be too tough. But it proved me wrong, and I'll give credit. I'm happy it did. But there's nothing interesting here. And I'll be curious to see how its ratings go and how it goes as we go forward. Because if this is the best you can do with the investment you made in it and all the promotional stuff, then the first half of your promotion, Pawn is Yawn, is perhaps the most apt metaphor of anything you use to promote this show. In short, Family Trade sucks.